Hello, beloveds. Welcome to the Amanda Collins podcast. It's my honor to help you awaken to joy, be your greatest self, and live a life you love. I'm Amanda Collins. Each week, I'll share tips, practices, and rituals to help you feel the storehouse of joy inside. I'll answer your questions and talk with thought leaders from around the world about health, wealth, love, conscious living, and parenting. Are you ready to live your most fulfilled life? This review is from Iveta. Loving the content so far. I'm really enjoying the vibe. Thank you so much. Thank you, Iveta, for the beautiful glowing review. Welcome to episode 52. In this episode, you'll learn about understanding self-observation, practices to stay in balance, how to deepen connection with yourself, increasing your intuitive abilities, and revealing dynamics of mind, body, and energy. Oh, I am so grateful to have Yolanda here. Welcome, Yolanda.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, Yolanda is like a Reiki master as well as just an amazing, amazing goddess. And I'm honored to have you here, dear sister. And I'd love to just start off with hearing a little bit about your journey and what was it that got you into the healing field, working with energy, Reiki in particular?
You know, it's really funny when I think of, just the way life moves and following. I always say it was like following the breadcrumbs, right? But I actually started because I was working in finance and I went through a layoff and it was a very stressful time. I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life and I didn't want to go back into finance. And so I found myself one day like crying, literally fetal position in my bedroom, like begging the universe, please just help me, give me some direction, a sign of what to do. And in that moment of like my hysteria, I had this odd calm come over me and I stopped crying. And I had this moment of clarity and this just knowing really to reach out to a woman to have my astrology chart done. And it was a woman that I had gone to years before, but, hadn't gone back to. And so I reached out to her. I went and had an astrology, like a forecast and an overview of what was going on in my chart. And in that session, she said to me, you should go have a Reiki session done and also start practicing meditation as ways to alleviate your stress. And so I had never heard of Reiki and, I went home, I Googled, and it sounded really interesting. I was like, what does this mean? Energy work, energy balancing, what are chakras? And instead of going to have a session, I signed up for a class because I was just curious. So I found myself in Reiki class and taking meditation classes simultaneously. And that was really it. Like I started practicing and my stress started to dissipate. And then, yeah.
You
so
just knew, huh?
Yep. I just knew and fell in love with the technique.
That's so beautiful. And I love that you're like, I didn't go for a session. I just went and took a class. It's kind of like you want to get to the source of it and kind of understand it versus just the experience, which I'm sure you got to the whole way through the class experience. So that's amazing. And so I know that Reiki is balancing energy and kind of cleansing your energy field, but it goes so much deeper than that. So it really works, on the deepest level. Tell us about that. Enlighten us about that.
Yeah. So one of the most interesting things I found, because at first that's exactly what I thought it was. I was like, oh, there's this technique that I'm learning and I can share it with my friends and family and help them to balance their energy too. So it started out with me practicing on anyone who would let me just put my hands on them. And, it was just really interesting and fascinating to hear them sharing that they felt, peace and calm and just whatever their experiences were. But what started happening is the more that I practiced on other people and started to tune into my own practice of just sitting and connecting with myself and noticing what was happening with, my mind, my thoughts, how I was perceiving things, I started to recognize that it was so much more than just creating like this temporary calm in the body. It really became this process of facilitating my own self-awakening, as we call it, or, understanding myself in new ways and starting to have these different aspects of my life experience come to the surface and working through these processes of forgiveness and just interacting with my life differently. And so there are different, I guess you would say, aspects of the Reiki practice that are more than just laying of hands, because that's usually what people associate with it. And as you know, there are other elements to the technique. So there are the Reiki principles that we learn. And the Reiki principles are basically like this guideline to help you understand how to live your practice. It's not just about being on a table, having this energy balancing done, but how do you show up in the world? How do you show up in your life? And what is your state of mind as you are engaging with yourself and the world around you? And then there's the aspect of the Reiki symbols, which again, sometimes they are looked at as just something we use in session. But when you connect with what they represent and the energy of these symbols, they really are these tools that help us go in a very kind of logical or linear path of how to facilitate our own awakening. So there's just all of these different components of the technique in of itself that help you to work on you in ways that are just, really, it's been profound.
So beautiful. And I'd love to go back a little bit because I love that you say, it's not just, because I think when you go for a session, right, you can go and you're like, oh, I'm not feeling great, I'm going to go for a Reiki session. So in some way, like, it's beautiful and it's powerful, but it's, in a way, it's like a little bit giving away your power. I'm going to go to that person because they're going to make me feel a certain way. But I love that you say, and I know it's just channeling spirit, it's just channeling source, but I love that you say it's about how you show up in the world, and it makes you look at, like, forgiveness and self-love and how you are even with yourself. So I'd love to go a little deeper into that. So explain what you mean of, like, how like, what was that for you, or how do you guide people in that as far as how they show up in the world?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So one of the interesting things about facilitating a Reiki session, if someone comes, a person comes and has a Reiki session for themselves, what will happen is once our energy is balancing or that energy starts to move, other things are happening because the mind and body and our energy, it's all interconnected. And I think that's a thing that a lot of times we don't think about. So when I think of it as a water hose. If you clink or grab a water hose, the water will get backed up. And that's usually symbols or symbolic of our own energy being backed up, where we have stress and all of oh my gosh, this worry, all of these things, day-to-day life, we get stuck in a rut, we may be stuck in our routine, and then there's this buildup, right? And it just creates this discomfort in our body. And so if you start to release a water hose, if you let go and allow the water to run through, that's kind of what happens in a Reiki session. You're allowing that energy to start to flow and move again in a more harmonious state. So what happens when your energy starts moving is sometimes then your mind also releases what we may call like blocks. So you'll have certain awareness come forward, and you may have, these different memories come up or these different feelings come up. And then it's like, okay, what do I do with it? And the interesting thing is, because you're in that space of your energy balancing or starting to flow in a harmonious way, people tend to have their thoughts or feelings, whatever comes to the surface, but they're not freaking out about it, maybe like they would have in the past. It's more of just an observation or awareness of like, oh yeah, I remember that thing. That's interesting. And the way you choose to look at it now is what really impacts you. You know what I mean? So say, for example, if there was something or someone that hurt you and you couldn't forgive it and you were holding that grudge, and that grudge, even if you weren't thinking about it consciously every day, it's still in your tissue. It's still in your field. It's still in the subconscious mind. And when you allow it to finally come forward and you have that opportunity to go, you know what? I think I'm over this, or I think I can let this go, or I can see the lesson I learned, or maybe I'm thankful that that person's no longer in my life, whatever it may be. Just that conscious awareness of I'm carrying this or seeing this differently now, it also allows you to have that calmness in your body. It also starts to shift, the calmness of the mind. But the key, of course, is how do we maintain that after session? So I think it's really important too for people to learn and understand about their own mind, body, energy, so that they can just, so it's not just like a Band-Aid, like having sessions when things go awry, but how to maintain that for yourself more consistently.
I love that. So what are some of the main suggestions, to help people maintain that? Because you come in and you have this amazing session and you feel like you're floating in the clouds, everything's flowing. And then you get that phone call or that email or that experience, that letter, it's like, oh no.
Yeah.
So how does one, bring themselves back into balance and maintain that?
Well, I think one of the main things is self-observation, So, and meditation is a beautiful tool for that. Although, for a lot of people, they hear meditation, they're like, I don't know if I can do that thing. So just on a very basic level, I tell people just start observing you. Start to notice what does trigger you. And in those moments when you are triggered, or in those moments when you're in upset, what does your body feel like? Where do you feel that in your system? Because that's going to give you indication of how and where you're holding that energy or that information in your being. But you also become aware of how your thought and how that trigger is impacting you. So once you start to be consciously aware of just how, the mind, the body, all of it is interacting, and you start making that choice again of like, okay, how am I going to deal with this? You can journal about it. Sometimes just getting it out on paper can be a release for us. Sometimes just, again, that awareness of like, how am I carrying that? What are my thoughts around this? When we start to, it's like being a detective in a way, right? Like you're just observing yourself and starting to ask yourself questions like, why am I holding on to this thing? Or why does this bother me so much? It's just, you just naturally start to come into your choice really of how am I functioning and why.
And being kind of willing to be with yourself and ask yourself and rather than just rushing around and busying yourself or numbing yourself with so many ways that we can nowadays, and instead just being like, oh, okay, I see this. I see I'm triggered by X, Y, or Z or whatever it may be. And I'm willing to sit with this and, find what's underneath it, what's really behind it. And then, let yourself be with that and being okay with that as well.
And I think that's really the key in all of this. I mean, whether we're practicing Reiki or meditation or whatever tools we use, there's the important part that we have to be willing to participate. And that's the part too where we do empower ourselves, is recognizing we are the ones that have choice in all of this. We have choice in how, we show up and, really examining our own influence in our life experience. So that's the part I love, is that it's ongoing. And it's not just about a singular session. while having a session is beautiful. Like I mean, obviously I love Reiki sessions, but then it's like, okay, so then what after that? And if you are someone who takes Reiki classes or, you know, again, any type of practice, oftentimes we'll go to, you know, classes or retreats and we're like, oh my gosh, that was amazing. And then we just go back into our lives and we're like, oh, that was it? Like, no. Take everything that you learned and you take these tools and you really just start to integrate them into your daily life. And that's what it's about. I think one of the things that I'm most passionate about is supporting people and understanding that it's not just a session, it's not just a class, it's really how do we integrate all of these tools and these philosophies to support us day to day.
I totally agree. And when you say integrate, so let's say you take a class in Reiki and it's profound and you have a lot of aha moments. And so then when you have that, because it's very easy to be like, I'm going to start integrating it, but then you go home and you get back into the businesses of the day-to-day life. What are some things that you can be like, okay, I, you know, was enlightened by these things and now I'm going to give space to integrate it? Like what are some main things that you know, give guidance for people that have taken your classes so they can give space for integration?
Yeah, so a couple of things. One of the things that is my favorite is meditation. And I think it's because, especially when you have Reiki classes or even any type of circle where you're allowing or you're given a space and you're given permission to just sit. Sometimes it's funny, like we just need permission, right? Like someone says, close your eyes and just be with you. It's okay. You're like, oh, I can do that?
Yeah.
And so you have this experience in class or wherever you had that experience, and you recognize how good it felt and you have this amazing thing go on. But then you giving yourself permission to make time for that in your life. So when you go back into your life, you know, even if it means waking up a little bit earlier, so you can just sit with yourself 5 minutes in the morning, or noticing like, oh, on my lunch break, maybe I have 5 minutes just to close my eyes and just reconnect with myself. Even though they seem like, I think it sounds kind of simplistic, but that's the thing. I think sometimes we make it so big and we create this idea of like, I don't have time to take care of myself. I don't have time to do these things. But once you recognize you can do it your way and you can fit it in or integrate it in a way that works for you, even if it's, you know, your moms. I know like a lot of my clients and students, they're parents and they're busy and they really are like, where do I have the time? It's like if you're sitting with your children and you're watching them play or you're cooking dinner, in those moments, if you just like make sure you're being very aware, very aware of what is going on, very aware of your engagements, all of these things are part of the practice. It's part of the practice of being present, not letting your mind go to, oh God, what do I have to do tomorrow? Oh my goodness, what happened yesterday? All of these little ways that we can just do that thing that we always hear, practice presence of mind. It doesn't have to be, you know, 5 hours a day that you carve out to get that done.
I love that. And I love how like simple you make this sound. And it is amazing how we can put ourselves in these prisons of, no, I don't have time, I can't do this, I'm going to limit this, I'll allow, you know, and it's just actually giving yourself space. And I love that. It's like whether you're just sitting with the children or you're at a traffic light, you can pause. And obviously breath is so profound, just to bring us into the moment. And you can choose at that traffic light to just inhale and exhale, you know, at a traffic light. Or, you know, I even remember when my babies were young, it was like, even with newborns, like they're breastfeeding for, you know, like half an hour every hour and a half, you know, so it's like, it was like, oh, I've got tons of time to meditate right now. You know, it's like, even in the middle of the night when I wake up, I can meditate, you know, so I think we can make a lot of excuses. And sometimes that's like a form of self-sabotage. It's like, you know, it's right there. And you know, it's just like 5 minutes of breathing, being conscious, but instead you're going to choose to scroll through social media for those 5 minutes. And then there's that feeling of emptiness, not saying that it's not wonderful to scroll and see what your friends are up to, but if your soul is saying, I want to pause and I want to go internal and I want stillness and connection, but you actually, rather than going internal, you go out in the world and, you don't listen. That's,
It reminds me of when you said that, like the visual of, like say if you're with your child and you're breastfeeding and you just look at their little hand, like just that presence, that moment with them, that's part of the practice of being in our body, being aware, being in the moment. Or sometimes when I'm driving, like I will catch myself and because, a lot of times we're just functioning on autopilot, which is part of what causes like this energetic buildup, and we're not allowing life and process to flow through us. We get so in our routines and everything. And so when I notice, like I'm driving from my home to the store and I recognize I'm not even thinking about where I'm driving because I'm just used to the path, so my mind could be all over the place and I'm still going to get from A to B. And you just, you have those moments of recognizing like, oh my God, I wasn't even paying attention. Like, I'm here already. So even in driving, like something that basic, sometimes I will give myself a moment to just recenter and go like, oh, look at the trees, look at what is around you, like pay attention to what you are doing and seeing in this moment. And again, it's just those little things that help us it's like reconditioning ourselves to be present, which again brings you into that self-awareness. And then by default, you start to understand and recognize what you hold, whether emotionally or again, those triggers. So it's just like a domino effect, and it all starts with just being in connection with yourself.
I love that. And like when you do take that moment, because if you notice like you're in that autopilot and that monkey mind starts, got to do this, got to do that, and you just stop, you breathe. And then it's like, wow, oh my gosh, look at that tree, it's beautiful, and look how bright that flower is, or the sky is so blue, or whatever it is. And it's like you're missing out on so much just being stuck in your head, not in your heart, not communing with spirit, with yourself, being in the present moment. And it's like we're missing out on so much when we're in that space.
Yes. And then one of the most beautiful things of it is that in this process of starting to just recognize and acknowledge ourselves, you start to have more awareness too about like what matters to me. What do I actually want to do? Well, you start questioning and allowing yourself to be aware of what your answers are, right? And so then you also, in a way, like you get to this place where you start to trust. And that's a really big one for us, because I think a lot of our stress and anxiety and these things come from what we think we can't do, what we think is impossible, not trusting ourselves, not trusting our process. And I mean, I guess we don't have time to go into like the conditioning from, a very young age. I mean, we're all conditioned in a lot of ways not to trust ourselves. But then even that starts to unravel. And so it just is like Reiki and all of these beautiful tools help us to build a very strong and loving relationship with ourselves. And then by default, again, you start to have a more loving and compassionate and understanding relationship with the world around you and those close to you. It just really does help to uplift our perspective in a lot of ways, is how I like to think of it.
Yeah, I love that. And that you bring up conditioning, because society, our family, wherever we picked up all this conditioning. Yeah. And I love the fact that, because a lot of time we think we can do or be just like based on the past, and the truth is the past is the past, and there's always this like infinite potential, so the more that self-awareness comes in, that self-love, that and major, trust, it's like, wow, it's really infinite potential here.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I would have never imagined when I was working in finance, if you told me I was going to end up teaching Reiki and meditation, all of these things, I would have thought you were crazy. That wouldn't have seemed like a possibility. It wouldn't have seemed logical to me. It wouldn't have. But, again, when you start working on yourself and you start just opening up to more of how you are being supported by the universe, and again, how much choice that you have in the process of your life and the unfolding of things, it's unbelievable what starts to present itself, and just, how your path starts to shift and change.
And I love that you said, you follow the breadcrumbs. I call it like the golden thread. And there's always just this golden thread. And sometimes like we don't know, what's all the way there, it's like, but it's just like, I'm willing to take this next step. And that's just saying, I trust myself, I trust spirit, I trust the universe. And, always though with that body under that heart, mind, soul alignment, because you always hear, follow your heart, which I think is really, really vital. But I think the mind, it's equally as important, and that there is just this harmony where they commune with each other in this peaceful way. And then there's that like soul gut, like where that third chakra is. Like, so I always imagine this like white golden cord from, almost my third eye, the mind, the third eye, down through my heart, down through, it goes all the way to the root, deep into the earth. But like, where before I make decisions or move forward, like I want that all to feel in alignment.
Yes. And that's the thing. I mean, it really is, the more we start to wake up to that mind body energy, connection that we are. That's the thing for me, is that, it's amazing, and it continues to amaze me that we're designed for this. It's part of just our natural design. And we grow up learning so much about the physical aspects of being, like, get sleep, eat the right food, on and on and on, how to engage with the material realm and the material world. But most of us don't grow up learning about this energetic part of our beingness. So it's like we're not even functioning at full capacity or taking care of ourselves as much as we can, because there's this aspect we weren't even aware of, So it's like, once you start to become aware of, like, whoa, I'm much more dynamic than I realized. And just that allows you to start to manage that flow and, connecting into and trusting, like you said, that golden thread. It becomes much easier once you become aware of, like, this is just, I can actually choose to, manage my flow and manage my mind, and like, I have so much input in all of this. Like, who knew? It's unbelievable.
I love that. So what are some things that you do daily that really keep you in balance and alignment and connected?
Well, I always start my day in meditation. And again, what has shaped or helped me so much in that is just starting out before I engage with life, with first making sure I am present in my being, and making sure that I, set some very clear intentions for myself, even of, like welcoming love, welcoming opportunity, welcoming connections with beautiful people. I start every morning in meditation and setting those intentions for myself. And then, as I go through my day, it's just that thing again of just being very aware of myself, like not ignoring when I have an emotion, coming up, or not ignoring when I'm triggered, and all of these things. And ending my day the same. Like, I like to end the day with, just some gratitude and just acknowledging, like, what did I learn, and what opportunities did I have, and what am I thankful for? Those things have really supported me. And of course, because of the nature of my work, there's energy work in there. But just in a very basic way, like, those things help support me every day. And
I love that. Practice. Yeah. And I really do feel like our work is our medicine, because, it's like with Reiki or any of those modalities, or if you're guiding someone through a meditation, you're receiving just as much, because you're channeling this energy. And same thing for me. It's, if I'm working with clients all day and I'm meditating, well, I'm going to be meditating all day long. And so that's the medicine that I also need as well, amazing how that works out.
That really is. And one of the things with that too, being able to work with people, that really lights me up, because it's interesting when people come to us for sessions or classes, a lot of times they feel, that we're just holding space for them, or we're providing them information and tools and these things. But it really is this two-way exchange. And there is something, so beautiful. I'm so thankful for when I do work with people, I learn so much from them, So that's another thing that really supports my practice, is being open to and exchanging with other people and listening to their stories, and, understanding how their experiences are impacting their own energy and all of these things. So that's why community to me is so important in all of this.
Absolutely. I love that. Yeah. And there's a reason why clients are, on a soul level attracted to work with you, and I always am, kind of being fully present with my client, and at the same time, just like, it's just like when you hear that alignment, it's like amazing,
Yes.
So I'd love to ask you, so there are kind of practices that you do, to keep yourself in balance, kind of energetically. What are some things that you'll do, on a more physical, diet or anything like that, exercise, or that really, on a physical, energetic level that keep you really vibrant, healthy?
It's so funny. I always say I never felt better in my life than when I did yoga teacher training. And so yoga for me, yoga poses are something physically that really support me in making sure that I am moving my energy and my physical body. So I don't, right now, I'm not practicing yoga the way that I used to, but it's one of those things that in between, sessions or just throughout the day, if can tell like there's a tightness in my body or something feels stuck or I'm just feeling a little off, just doing a few stretches, again, like just throughout the day, that's very helpful for me. Staying really hydrated, which is something I had to, conscious choice for me, because honestly, I wasn't a big water drinker. I just, I don't even know what that's about. It wasn't my thing. But staying really hydrated is super important for me. And again, paying attention to my body, like what do I feel, or what is it craving, or what's going on, like what's coming up for me. But definitely yoga. And one thing too is my posture.
Absolutely.
My posture, that's it. Like sometimes just sitting. And, we may have our, we're kind of slouched, our shoulders are, there is something so amazing what happens to you feeling wise when you adjust your posture. Just sit up, roll your shoulders back, open that heart space. It's like you come more alert, more online, more aware. So yeah.
I love that. Just as you were saying that, I just straightened them, and then like the soles of the feet down at the earth, it's amazing. Yes. I love that. And I feel the same way about yoga. It's like coming home, oh, amazing. And so what are some like 3 practices that tune you into abundance, prosperity?
Well, one of the things that I love is, again, the Reiki principles. So it just to say for people who don't know, it's just for today. I'm free from anger. I'm free from worry. I am grateful. I do my work and live life honestly, which could also be I'm diligent. And the last one is I'm kind to myself. And I also include I'm kind to myself in all living things. So sometimes meditating on that, again, it's like adjusting my state of mind first, like really tuning into what is going on in my mindset. Like, am I right now stuck in my worry? Am I stuck in any fear? Am I allowing myself to focus on what I do have and my gratitude for all things? Am I being kind to myself? Am I being diligent in my practice? The Reiki principles really do set the stage for me mind-wise, because I think everything follows that. So if I am allowing myself to really connect to those and check how I am personally engaging with those, that, it continue into that frequency of flow again. Like, am I allowing the universe to work with me? Am I allowing myself to work with myself? How am I engaging in this day, in this moment? So those are actually my go-to for kind of checking myself.
They're beautiful. Thank you for sharing. They're gorgeous.
Yeah.
So, what's next for you? What can you tell us that you haven't told anybody else yet? Like, what's next? Well, what are you up to next?
Actually, it's so funny you asked me that. One thing that I am working on right now is I'm currently writing a book. So I'm so excited.
Tell us more.
Yeah. So I have, as you know, I have a podcast as well. So I work with people, all over the world, and I've been sharing information for years now, supporting people in their practice of energy transformation and, self-healing, all of these things. And I've been asked a lot, like, can you do retreats? Can you do this? Can you do that? And right now I can't do everything at once, So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write a book and then go to the next steps of other things I want to do. So that is what I'm working on currently. And I hope to be done with that by the end of this year.
That is very exciting. And any little hints at what it's about?
Yeah, it's actually going to be a guide that really supports people in everything we've been talking about, really, like how to manage and understand your own mind-body energy connection, which ultimately is about understanding your own true nature so that you can live your life from that higher awareness and recognizing your choice and learning how to trust and all of these things. So it will be a guide that supports people who are already doing energy work, but I want it to also speak to people who, that may not be their path, but they still want to understand how to better manage their own lives.
That sounds amazing and so needed. So I can't wait to get my copy when it comes out.
Yes, I can't wait to send it to you.
Yeah. And thank you for all that you do. I mean, it's so beautiful. Just this amazing podcast, which I want to hear more about. I want to share with the audience because it's an incredible podcast. But one question I want to ask you before that is, how in this moment may we be of service to you?
Oh, that's a beautiful question. I actually, two things are coming to mind. One, contact me and join the community of other healers and energy workers. One, because that is what really does light my heart up. It's why I show up every day, just seeing this community grow, having this space where more and more people feel support and nurtured. But really the best way I think we can be of service of each other is to make that choice to be in our own practice. I think one of the most beautiful gifts that we can all give to the world is to become responsible and accountable for our own energy and what we are projecting and sharing and how we're showing up in our lives. So I think that's the best gift of all, is all choosing to be more loving and compassionate.
I love that. And I so agree. And I love that you said earlier on, it's about being kind to ourselves and kind to all beings,
Yes.
And that's what we need in the world. Just
Yes.
kindness, compassion,
Yes.
kindness, love. So tell us, how do we reach you? Tell us about your podcasts, classes, fill us in.
Yeah. Okay. So Reiki Radio, that is my baby. That is my love. I have to say, I had no idea that it would, grow the way that it has, but it's just, again, lights me up because I get to connect with, energy healers and seekers from everywhere. So Reiki Radio is a podcast that's available on iTunes. And it's just a space to share tips and tools and techniques with everyone who is seeking or in their practice, wherever they are on their path. And I have the beautiful opportunity to interview other healers such as yourself and share the work of other people with the community. Yeah. So again, my Aquarian nature. I'm like, community, that's everything. So you can find Reiki Radio on iTunes. You can also learn more about me and my work at my website, which is theenergeticalchemist.com. And when you sign up for the newsletter, you actually get a free guided journey called 22 Days of Transformation. And that is a 22-day process that helps you do exactly what we've talked about, like how to come into that observation of the self and learning how you do have choice in your perspective and management of your own energy.
That's so beautiful. Thank you so much. And we're going to make sure to put all those links into the show notes for your amazing podcasts and offerings. And that sounds incredible, the 22-day of nourishment and yes. connection. So, yeah. Yolanda, I am so grateful. Thank you. I feel like I could chat for hours. You're just so beautiful. And I'm so grateful for you being here and sharing all your beautiful wisdom.
Oh, Amanda, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. And can I just ask one last question?
Yes.
If you were to put one book in the schools for children, what would that book be?
Ooh, oh my goodness. Wow. It's funny, I'm staring at my bookcase right now. Actually, one book that I love is a book called The Book of Loving Creation by Paul Selig. And all of his work is really about that self-love and nurturing ourselves in new ways and really fostering that new awareness and starting to live from that, our higher selves, if that's what you want to call it. But yeah, The Book of Loving Creation by Paul Selig, I think, is a beautiful book. And anyone, whether we're young or older, that self-connection and self-love is huge in our life experience.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much. We'll definitely list that book in the show notes. Thank you so much, Yolanda. I'm so grateful for you being here today.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
That was such a beautiful episode. Thank you, Yolanda. Such beautiful teachings and great reminders. Now I'd love to hear from you. What are some ways that you sit with yourself to observe how you feel emotionally, physically, spiritually? Please share, because remember, by you sharing might be just what somebody else needs to hear to have their shift. Each month, I leave free new moon meditations. Head over to amandacollins.com. There you'll find the registration link. If you would like to be the next review that I read, please head over to iTunes and leave me a 5-star review. I would be so, so grateful. If there's someone in your life that you feel could benefit from this episode, please share it with them now. Thanks, beloveds, for joining us today. Please come over to amandacollins.com to continue the conversation and get access to all my podcasts, blogs, and videos. Did you enjoy this podcast? If so, please subscribe to the Amanda Collins podcast on iTunes and leave us a 5-star review. Feel free to pass this podcast on to your friends. That helps us get incredible guests to share their secrets for an inspired and joyful life. If you want more great resources, come over to amandacollins.com and join my mailing list for all my latest content. Thanks so much for listening. Until next time, I'm sending love and joy your way.